And we're live. And with me, I have Ansgar Odinson. Welcome aboard.
Good to be here. Very good to be here.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'll start with I am an artist. Right now, I'm working on a graphic novel, but what got me into the YouTube thing is I've been studying art and art history and things like that for a very long time. And I started seeing sort of different ideologies decide that art needed to be censored, and I thought that I had a unique perspective to offer sort of the YouTube scene, which seems to want to do a lot of response videos. And I love those response videos, like Thunderfoot and Sargon and Undoomed and Danny Duchamp and that kind of thing. But I specifically wanted to address kind of the art scene, like how this affects comics and games and classical fine art and television. I consider all those things art, movies, and why allowing art to be censored is actually more dangerous than just kids hobbies are being censored. Who cares? So yeah, that's kind of me. I live here in Torrance, right off just a little south of Los Angeles. Um, my wife and I have been through a hell of a journey, and she allowed me to quit my day job and work full time on art and YouTube and things like that. So she's amazing.
So, you say you write graphic novels. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I'm working on a graphic novel now. I'm hoping by the end of the year it will be finished. It's probably going to be anywhere between like 180 to about 300 pages. Rather than publishing it in like a serialized comic form, I just wanted to finish a big chunk of the story and publish it all at once. It's all hand drawn in graphite. Some of the panels are colorized, but most of them are all done in black and white. And um, I wanted to keep kind of a raw style going on. And I can even share with you actually a piece of art if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah, let me find. I will share with you a panel that is actually from the cover, the artwork that ends up on the actual cover of the. As soon as I can find it, got so many files here.
Can you tell us what the novel is going to be about?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. It's got there's a lot of social commentary. It's a rather philosophical. Here we go.
Oh,
It's
really
a
cool.
rather philosophical piece. A lot of my sort of philosophical views are mingled in with my more rational views. Um, but essentially, what it's about is a group of sort of the young, the best, and the brightest, and sort of a near future alternate universe where there's a bit of magic, a bit of technology, that kind of thing. Um, Deal with, I guess, a returning, um, the return of mythological creatures, the return of magic, the return of things from folklore. I'm deeply inspired by history and folklore. And so I bring a lot of folklore from all around the world into my graphic novel. Things from Norse mythology to Celtic to Greek and Japanese and Egyptian and everything in between.
Yeah, because notice your last name you picked for yourself is Odinson, so you must really admire Odin.
That is actually my real last name.
Oh,
Yeah. My family is from Scandinavia.
oh, I
Yeah.
thought that you made that name up.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and it is a great name. No, it's actually Odin is not just the name of a god. People really are named Odin in Scandinavia and have been for a long time. And when the it used to be a long time ago that you didn't really have a last name. Surnames are not really a Scandinavian thing. Your last name, so to speak, really meant you were either daughter of or son of, whoever. And when Scandinavia Christianized, many families either took the name of the current male head of household as their last name. So, for instance, possibly in my past, there was a man named Odin who was head of the household. So everyone just became Odinson. Or they would take a famous ancestor, someone who was important to the family history, and choose them as their last name. And then some even took family trades and crafts into their last name. It was kind of different because they were basically all picking their surnames at the time.
Mm, that's very interesting. So you're just gonna use art to express your views on like social justice, feminism. Is
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
A lot of things, sexuality. Well, like the thing is like when it comes to social justice and feminism, I think where they got their lines crossed is they took philosophy and they tried to apply it as empirical fact. To give you an idea, like I like to think when I think about people philosophically, I like the idea of the blank slate theory, in the idea that we treat each other as people first and a gender second. Like philosophically, I like the idea of thinking about gender as meaningless because it does promote the idea of treating each other equally. However, I know in my logical mind the empirical facts that genders really are different, and there's different brain chemistries, and there's different physiological responses, and it does actually make us different. It's the difference of taking into a philosophy that helps change the way you interact with the world because that philosophy helps make you treat people better, and treating your own personal philosophy as a fact that should guide everybody else's behavior, if that makes sense.
mm, totally. It's just the way you're talking about using arts to express your ideas. It makes me think of that scene of V from Vendetta. I don't know if you even saw that movie. Have you?
Yeah, V for Vendetta. Yes.
Yes. V was talking to Evie, or well, whichever, and they were saying politicians use lies. No, no, politicians use the truth to tell lies, and artists use lies to tell the truth.
Yes. Yes, that is a great line, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. We make up stories that are representative of the truth.
Yeah, like even during the time when Christianity had its dictatorship, people just tried to use arts to get the truth out, because they can't see the truth directly without getting punished.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to show how important art is if you look at what's it called, the dialogue of the two chief world systems. This was a piece of literature that first in sort of introduced the idea that we could debate science versus religion in public discourse. This was a piece of art that allowed science to even have a voice in public discourse. That's that to me shows the impactful need of art in our culture. And when you clamp down and say that this kind of art shouldn't be produced, can't be produced, you can't make this kind of art, you can't have this voice in be allowed in art. I think that's very dangerous to Western culture.
Yeah, but there are artists like even with the straight Christian culture, there are artists who manage to find the loopholes and still get their message out there.
It's true. It's true. I think it's important. I really do think it's important, and art is in a dangerous place right now. Produce one kind of art, and there's a religious right telling you that you're evil and sinful. You produce another kind of art, and the social justice warriors and feminists tell you that you're some kind of, you know, uh, shitlord, horrible person that hates women, and it's like, no, 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 it's just entertainment. Just entertainment. It's okay. It's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, the feminists in the EU, I think it's the EU, but feminists were trying to get this video game from Japan banned from coming to the US and Europe because they say it's sexist and misogynist. And it pissed off the Japanese guy. It was like, why don't you focus on real women instead of focusing on my fictional imaginary girls?
Right. Right. No, no, it's true. That happened to a couple games. One of them, of course, was Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball 2 or whatever it is, or 3 or yeah, yeah. I know I bought it just out of protest, and what happened was Japan decided not even to bother releasing the game in the West because they didn't want to deal with the intersectional politics, and decided it wasn't worth it. And a Chinese company, PlayAsia.com, they decided they would release the English version because most games that go to the what is that, the Southeast Asia markets from Japan, they just give them the English version because there are so many different languages across Southeast Asia. But usually, most of those people will speak enough English that they can still play an English translated game. So they just sold the English translated game to Western audiences, and it pissed people off. And they were really cheeky about it. They had these wonderful Twitter responses about safe spaces and hugs, hug surfaces, and it was quite hilarious.
Yes, it sucks because it means that we don't have the opportunity to play these games. Like even back in the day, there used to be a show called Games Banned in America. And it seems pretty fun. It's like, man, why can't we play these games?
Yeah.
I should go all the way to Japan just to play some really cool games, and it sucks.
Yeah, did you see what they did to the new Fire Emblem game?
No.
They took out huge. First of all, they chopped up the game into three parts instead of one, and only for the West. In Japan, it's all one game, and they took out features of the game entirely. Like there was a character, for instance, who was afraid of. I think she's like afraid of men or women, I forget which one, and you can give her this potion that makes her not afraid of you, and then you can date her in the game. And the social justice warriors said it was too close to date rape, and so they had to nix that. Um, there was a petting thing where you could basically undress the characters down to their underwear, and you could use the touch screen to pet them because it was kind of part of the dating simulator, which I don't really give a shit. It's not my thing, but the fact that it got uh so rape potion, says Steve Talon. Yeah. um and but yeah, they had to take that part of it out too.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice that Steve's telling us on chats. Hey, Steve. Um, anyway,
Yes.
um, let's see. Have you ever been a feminist?
Yes, I was actually. Back in the, I would say, late 80s, early to mid 90s, I was definitely a feminist. There are still a few areas where I would like to see um, uh, I guess I can still see areas where there are very specific individual little areas where feminism has some points. but they're very few, and I think the movement does a lot more damage. But I kind of feel like back in the late 80s and early 90s, there were still some fights to be had. And I think that when they won pretty much all those fights, there was this sort of like rallying cry, the fight isn't over, and they kept going, and they've taken it too far. For instance, the areas where I would like to see these things still happen, I'm kind of with the whole free the nipple thing, where I think it's wrong that men are allowed to be topless, but women aren't. I do think there are also areas of the of America, at least some very specific states. This isn't an America-wide thing where female reproductive rights are genuinely in jeopardy. Where they're making it as hard as possible for women to get birth control and adequate access to OBGYN and shit like that. Um, but those are very rare, small little cases, and the problem is that these specific instances are used by the feminists as a whole to say, look, women are under attack, and it's like, no, these specific areas are just regressive, you know.
Is that what led you away from feminism?
Absolutely. The narrative got changed from let's help women get these specific things done to all men are evil. You know what I mean? And male sexuality is evil. That I think my biggest divergence with modern feminism is on the subject of sexual liberation. Sexual liberation is one of my most passionate subjects, to be quite honest. And when they reversed their narrative on sexual liberation and actually are attacking sexual liberation values and devaluing women for daring to expose their bodies. They're the ones that are now slut shaming. They're the ones that are now telling women that they are immoral if they undress. That's my biggest divergence with modern feminism. That's what really pisses me off, is they are now denigrating women.
Mm. Uh, so you don't miss feminism at all? You don't look back at it with fun memories, or do you regret being a feminist, or do you think that at the time it was justified to be a feminist?
I think at one time it was justified to be a feminist. I think that um, do I look fondly back on my days of being an activist for a lot of different things. I was a pro, gay rights activist back when, things like gay marriage were an issue and things like that. I have been an activist for a great many of things. But I consider myself a reasonable activist that, like, once the fight is done, I just kind of go, okay, cool, fight done. Let's move on to the next thing. But some of these people, I feel like they can't. Maybe that's what it is. They look fondly back on their days of being an activist and they go, no, the fight isn't over. We have to keep going. Or they're newly coming into this world and going, looking back on the past victories and wanting to cash in on some of that glory and thinking that they need to invent a victim to rally for. And it's like, there are victims. They're just not here in the Western world, really.
Yeah, and they're just beating a dead horse and running it into the ground. Well, why not be a women's rights advocate as opposed to a feminist, or do you think those are the exact same thing?
I don't necessarily think they're the exact same thing. And I think being a woman's rights activist, I think that's perfectly valid. I like to consider myself a human rights activist, um, because there are areas of the world, there are areas of life where anyone could use some activism regardless of their gender. There are areas where men are discriminated against. There are areas where women are discriminated against. You know, and I think that that it's more productive to not label yourself as, I'm only going to advocate for the rights of this one specific group. There are people who that's what their passion is. I specifically want to, advocate for the rights of men, or specifically want to advocate for the rights of women, and that's okay, as long as they're not doing so in a way that actually steps on the rights of others. And that's where kind of modern feminism is coming into, where it's advocating for the rights of women to the point where they want more rights than others. They're actually willing to stomp on other people's rights. And sometimes there's a genuinely, they will admit, no, 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 there's a history of inequality, therefore we deserve inequality on our side, you know what I mean, for some time to make it equal.
So you are not a men's rights advocate.
No, I wouldn't say I'm a female rights advocate or a men's rights advocate. I'm sort of an advocate of human rights and individualism. Um, I want to see, equal rights across the freaking board, and I do want to say that I'm a fairly, I guess, um, what's the proper word? I'm pretty sensitive guy when it comes to people's issues and problems and things like that. And I do understand, and I do feel really bad when anybody is being quote unquote marginalized or something like that. But the problem is that a lot of these things that happen on an individual basis. Like there really are, like there are some people on the side, on the really way to the right side, that will say things like, racism doesn't exist, it's gone now, and it certainly does. um there are places here, even in America, that are extremely racist, but they are small, little, tiny pockets. These aren't representative of America as a whole. The left, however, would like to say that one little pocket of racism is representative of the entirety of the Western world, and that clearly isn't the case.
Mm. Yeah, I totally hear you. So you've never been tempted to be MGTOW, like you never found MGTOW tempting and go, man, or you don't sympathize with any with their core value.
I actually sympathize in the sense that I understand where they came to what they believe in. You know, I sympathize with a lot of different people in that regard, but I can't call myself that. Like, I think what it is I've never been the kind of person to lump myself into a group of any kind. Like, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. I register as nonpartisan because no matter which side of the argument, I can always see where one person has or one side has adopted a principle I don't necessarily agree with. And so since there's never going to be a group that I agree with 100%, I think I'm kind of done just being like, I'm part of this group.
So you're not even an anti-feminist.
I wouldn't even say that I'm not an anti-feminist. I attack specifically the ideas and not the movement as a whole, I guess I would say.
Mm, okay. So even though you would never call yourself an anti-feminist, is there anybody in the anti-feminist community that's inspired you, or is it the fact that you were actually in that movement and you see bits and pieces where they've gone astray, that you just feel like, you know what, I need to talk about this?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of different things that started to happen. First of all, I love people like I started off watching people like Sargon, Thunderfoot, Undoomed, Bearing. I found Danny Duchamp, who I absolutely adore as a YouTuber. And certainly I very much of a lot of how I feel falls right in line with the anti-feminist movement. Um, Absolutely. I think where I really got where I really started seeing it first was the video games. The whole Anita Sarkeesian fiasco and crap like that really is what made me I guess, get on board with helping the anti-feminist movement and wanting to counter their points. And what got me into the actual YouTube game, it's actually kind of an interesting story. It's do you remember the whole Tracer's butt thing that happened?
Yes.
Okay, so originally I kind of got on board with the story, and I was going, what the hell is going on here? I've been a big fan of Blizzard games for a very long time. So I was watching an episode of Screw Attack, interestingly enough, their side scrollers podcast, and they were framing this issue as an isolated incident, and they were saying, people are overreacting and stuff like that. And I commented in because I'd been playing Blizzard games for a long time, but this wasn't an isolated incident. Blizzard has been virtue signaling in sort of the SJW camp for a while now, and I pointed out how, like, even in a past BlizzCons, representation and body positivity and sexualized, quote unquote, sexualized characters had been a problem. These big talking points at BlizzCon. And then I pointed out that even Chris Metzen told the story about how his daughter saw a picture of Sylvanas and was like, "Daddy, why is that lady in a bikini?" And he just looked crushed by this question his child asked him. And I was saying, this isn't like an isolated incident. This is a growing aggravation from the community, from the fandom that is seeing a game franchises and game developers they love get slowly polluted with this ideology. And someone responded and said, "Man, you should be a professional YouTuber." That was an excellent point, or something like that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. So I put together a video, and it was haphazard, and it was only so good, especially compared to my modern stuff. But I put it up online, and sure enough, this guy subbed. He was my first sub, and he was like, "Oh man, awesome video! You said you were going to do it, and you did it. Have a sub, And that's what thrust me into it, and I've just been sort of evolving, I guess, ever since.
Yes. Do you think that feminism's influence in America has gone too far?
I think it has. I think it's only growing, unfortunately. We're seeing it in, kids are being taught feminism doctrine in schools. In fact, here in California, they just passed a law that all high school kids will now learn affirmative consent in school. We're seeing it mirrored, their points parroted in the public media. We're hearing it parroted, pretty much all over the place here in the West, at least here in America. A lot of just objectionably wrong feminist ideologies are being spoken as if they're just a given truth without ever, you're not even allowed to question whether these things are true.
What feminist aspects do you see in this country that you'd like to see changed?
Well, the demonization of male sexuality, I would like to see changed. That's a big one. And the demonization of the uncovered female form. I think that when you otherize, when you alienate, when you demonize sexuality, it creates nothing but trouble. We can look at any religious institution that has demonized sexuality, and we can see increases in sexual abuse, rape. We can see more instances of, pedophilia. Demonizing something so intrinsic to our being and so important to what we are as a species is not healthy psychologically. And that's what they're doing. They're demonizing sexuality. They're they're trying to make us feel guilty for very natural, normal, and quite frankly, fun urges.
What do you think of the alt-right?
The alt right is interesting. I've never been able to pin down exactly what the alt right is because everyone has their own definition. By some definition, some of my good friends are alt right, and by some definitions, they're not. Um, if we're going into sort of the nationalist alt right, where they think that um, they want segregation and ship everybody back to their home countries, I think that's pretty fucking extreme. If we're talking about the alt right, as in the right wing that doesn't buy into Christian dogma and they're not the religious right, I'm for them.
Are you an avid reader?
Yes, I am actually quite a bit.
Which books would you recommend for your audience?
Right now I'm reading a book that I'm having a lot of fun with, and I know this is way not on the topic, but I am reading a book called Illidan by William King. It is a Warcraft novel. I like fantasy quite a bit and sci-fi, and the Warcraft novels have been really, really good. One of my favorite old novels that I just recently reread was the original Jurassic Park. That is a fantastic sort of sci-fi novel. And if you want some great cultural commentary and sort of an interesting look into society, I would say the original Starship Troopers book, absolutely fantastic.
Hmm. Do you wish more Americans were interested in American politics?
Yes, and wanted to be informed. Absolutely. Too many people, I think, take our politics for granted.
How,
Um, Go ahead.
how do you feel about Barack Obama's presidency?
I honestly have mixed feelings. I think in some ways he's been blamed for everything. I think in some ways that he gets to take the blame for things he had no control over. Um, and then I'm not as keen on his bombing policies, and I'm not as keen on his soft response culturally to terrorism. He wants to try and be a really, really kind to Islam. And I think that that's a bad move, but I also kind of understand the politics in it. I'm not sure that he could get away with being tough on Islam in this current political cultural climate, being a Democrat. Now, being a Republican, you can get away with that. Being a Democrat, I'm not sure that you can. So I'm not sure if that's honestly the way he feels, or if that's a hedging his bets on the Democratic side. Either way, though, I wish he would just come out and condemn Islamic terrorism instead of trying to dance around the issue.
How do you feel about Donald Trump, and then how do you feel about Hillary Clinton? Pros and cons of both, or if you only have insults for both, you can do that too.
um, I have pros and cons of both, actually. Hillary Clinton, though, okay, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. First of all, I can't vote for either of them. And one of the reasons, the biggest reason, is both of them have either anti free speech or anti freedom of expression policies. Clinton, for instance, has been the biggest proponent of censorship in video games when it comes to the government. She is a big pro censorship girl. Trump wants to open up libel laws because he wants to be able to sue comedians and news outlets that don't like him. That again, anti freedom of expression. So I'm not real. I can't really, as someone who's so so passionate about freedom of speech and expression. I can't vote for either of them. Trump, I do like that he is willing to speak his mind. I do like that he is willing to just, call things as he sees them, so to speak. But he's also sort of he's not exactly the most inspiring man, as far as he doesn't have that air of professionalism that past presidents have had. He certainly won't be the best representative for the American people, as far as when we're talking about abroad. But I do like that he is kind of a centrist and he is outside the system. That's kind of nice. Clinton, I think she is a far more professional persona. Whether or not she's actually more professional, she has a more professional persona, but she's also, her opinions are bought and sold. We've seen time and time again her completely change her position based on what's going to be more financially beneficial to her. And I really can't get behind either of these candidates entirely.
How do you feel about the feminist idea that it is important that we have our first female presidents?
Um, I think that when we have our first female president, whoever that is, it's a little bit important. I don't think it's the importance that they put on it. The only reason I think it's kind of it will be important is that it will be the first time it's happened. That's interesting. That's history. History is written on the first time this happened, the first time that happened in wars. Certainly, there was a long history in this country of discrimination against women. It happened. We have to come to terms with that. It's not happening now. And certainly a woman can be elected president. And I think that even if she doesn't make it into the White House, the fact that she had such a strong candidacy and got as far as she did, I think that's important historically. However, the narrative that we need to vote her in so that we can have our first female president, that is dishonest, because if she's not qualified for the job and she is not prepared for the job, or is too corrupt to do the job, then we shouldn't be voting her in regardless of her gender.
All right. And you're against the feminists saying that Bernie Sanders is sexist for trying to become president himself, even though he's fighting against a woman to be president?
Yeah, I'm completely against that. That's just ridiculous. That is just absolutely ridiculous. The thing is when a woman wins, if she doesn't win on her own merits, if she doesn't win, here's something for feminists. Do you really want the first woman president, right? Do you really want the history of that moment to be tainted with, well, she won because she's a woman? Or do you want her to win on her own merits? You know what I mean? Like that to me seems more historically relevant.
Yeah, Black people are going through that right now, where that guy T, he did a video response because there's all these Black chicks who are like, so many people think I got in this college just because I'm Black. It's insulting. Well, when you have affirmative action to get you into college just because you're Black, that's exactly what people are going to start thinking. You're just here because you're Black and you didn't even earn it. You just got here because you're Black. Whereas some
Right.
people have earned it.
Yeah, no, it's true. You can make an argument that you might have gotten in without affirmative action because you're that great, but we'll never know because there is affirmative action.
Yeah, and many people refuse to acknowledge that affirmative action is a privilege. And I have heard certain people, like the new kids, saying if people starts acknowledging that women have privileges, or that Blacks have privileges, it wouldn't be so bad, because then we could start having an honest discussion rather a dishonest discussion.
See, I think instead of worrying about privileges and all of that crap, well, first of all, they've taken the idea of privilege and they've expanded it. If we really want to talk about anything in this country right now, if we want to talk about oppression, oppression and oppressors, it has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with economics. We have a serious problem where there really are these massively wealthy people who are able to almost buy elections. We have the crony capitalism going on. We have classism, and we have truly poor, desperate people. Um, how to solve that? I don't know. You'll have one people on the side that says, true free market capitalism. Other people on the other side saying, it's all about socialism. And I'm not sure what the right answer is, but I think that that's where the conversation needs to be. Getting those economic gears greased and moving properly, not on affirmative action and what color somebody's skin is.
So do you think that it should be required for everybody to take up economics in school?
I think that if nothing else, home ec should come back into play. Certainly. I think that there are, well, here's some things I really think I'd like to see happen in schools. Certainly, I think that we should learn more about economics. I think we need to be learning more about the political system and the importance of it in school. And I think we need to bring back shop class. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be the shop class of the past. I think we need to continually update shop class and make sure that kids are learning skills that will take them straight from high school to the job market. If you look at the 1940s and the 1950s and the 1960s and the 1970s, shop class was always the most in demand entry level jobs, steelworking, woodworking, things like that. Easy. You could come right out of high school and get one of the most in demand entry level jobs. We could be doing that in high school. Let's look at what the most in demand entry level jobs are and have a quote unquote, shop class that teaches kids how to do the most in demand jobs, whether it be computer repair or whether it be welding, or it doesn't matter what it is. Let's just teach those specific courses. I think it would hide fewer jobs behind barriers of education.
Mm, yeah. Have you ever been religious at all, or that's
Yeah. I was Christian for a time. Very I would say kind of liberal Christian. It wasn't I wasn't ever dogmatic or anything like that. And slowly but surely, my wife and I gave that up.
also Christianity was the only religion you had before you moved to atheism, right?
Yeah. I moved basically from Christianity to philosophy. I much more enjoy philosophy, and the thing is I can debate. You're allowed to debate philosophy, and you're allowed to change and adapt your philosophies over time. Whereas religion is, it's rigid.
What led you away from Christianity?
It was a lot of things. I think the last, um, um, what really happened was, my wife and I, we were already treating Christianity like philosophy anyways. We were doing the kind of the typical thing of only looking at the certain positives and ignoring all the horrible shit that's in the Bible. And we weren't really being Christian. We just sort of, I think, we're holding on to it because we were raised that way. It was like a cultural Christian, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Um, yeah, we were just kind of culturally Christian. And then when we moved, we decided we would want to look for a local church just to see if there was something in the area. And we couldn't find anything. Couldn't find a single church in the area that we didn't feel repulsed by. And finally, we went to this one Christian production. It was a church. They were doing this, Christmas production, and they wanted us to come. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll come check it out. And essentially, the moral of the story that they had in their production was be a good Christian or God's going to kill your children. Like, and it was just like, you know what? The sad thing is I can find ways of justifying this in biblical text. You know what? No, I'm out of here. So from then on, we decided we're done with this shit. And we decided that we're just going to be more honest and call ourselves atheists.
Yeah. Man, I lost what I was just thinking. I hate it when that happens.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, do you regret living Christianity?
I don't know that I regret it. Like, we were never so washed up into it that we did that it did made me behave any way that I regret. Like, even though I was a Christian, I was still like a gay rights activist and all this other shit. So I don't think that the Christianity ever made me do anything stupid. I just think that I maybe espoused a few stupid ideas here and there, and maybe I don't regret that. I just kind of look at that as being childish and silly, and I kind of laugh at myself for it.
What part of the Christian lifestyle do you miss?
Um, I guess I would say more than anything, I miss being able to talk honestly with my own family. Um, my mother is very Christian still, and she's always trying to quote unquote save me, and you know, I guess I miss being able to just chill and talk about the way I feel and not feel like I'm I'm gonna get some kind of a spiritual intervention.
Do you hate Christians now, or you have no problem with them, or do you yell at them or argue with them about their beliefs, or are you more like live and let live? You believe this, I'm cool with it, or no?
I'm a bit live and let live until they start trying to change policy. As long as their crazy beliefs don't spill into policy, I'm good. Like, don't try to teach children your fantasies. Don't try to teach my children your fantasies. Don't try to, ban something based on your religious beliefs. Don't try to get laws changed based on your religious beliefs. Just don't do it.
So Christians shouldn't teach their own children about their religious beliefs, even though they may be afraid of their child going to hell.
Nope, I certainly didn't. When I was parenting my children, um, even though I was Christian, I taught them about a lot of different religions, and I told them that this is what I believe, but in no way can I claim that I know this to be true. This is belief. This is faith. I raised them to. In fact, I challenged any single one of their opinions. Let's say I had an opinion that I liked something. Right? It doesn't matter what, and they came and they said that they liked the same thing. I would say why. And if they couldn't come up with a good reason, I tell them, no, that's a poor opinion. If you don't have a reason for agreeing with me, then you shouldn't agree with me. Come up with your own ideas. And so that's how we raise our kids, including on religion. And they all ended up atheists before even my wife and I did.
It gets before you and your wife.
Yes. My. I remember when my eldest articulated that he was atheist before I had even decided I was. So
Uh,
I
so,
think. Go ahead.
so for you, your libertarian values come first over and above anything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think a person's right to choose what they will do in this life and what they want to think is far more important. And I think it's more important to teach a child how to discover themselves and their own beliefs and their own opinions than it is to teach a child how to be like you.
Okay. Is there anything you wish your audience knew about you?
Hmm. I guess I wish they understood just what a ginormous geek I am and how much I'm into the nerdy things that I'm into. Like, I've got my Godzilla toy collection just a few feet from me, my Halo toy collection, my Ninja Turtle toy collection. You know what I mean? Like, I guess if they, I guess I'd want them to understand just how into art and nerdy art that I really am.
Well, that's all the questions. Thank you for coming. I hope that the people enjoyed watching. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.